Good morning, LUNC Army! I'm your host, Mr. Diamond Hands, coming to you live from the Luna Classic Studios in the Bluegrass state of Kentucky. LUNCLIVE starts now. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We're glad to have you here this morning on LUNCLIVE. We have in the studio with us Duncan, the man, the myth, the legend himself, who is working on the proposal which everybody has their eyes set on. Proposal 11324, the Ziggy Repeg attempt of USTC. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, I want to encourage you, please do us the honor and the privilege. Like this space, retweet it, quote tweet it. Make sure everybody in the Luna Classic community knows about today's AMA because it's going to be very, very exciting. Duncan, as always, we're glad to have you in the studio. This is your second time now on the show, and we're excited to have you, my friend. Are you there?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Good morning from California.
Sunny California. It's a little bit early for you. It's 10 a.m. on the East Coast here, so I guess now you're just waking up. Hopefully you've got your cup of coffee, as do I here, and that is what gets me going during the day, especially as a father of three. I've got to have the elixir of the gods to make sure that the job is done the correct way. So if you guys hear me pause during today's show, it's because I'm taking a sweet sip of this lovely invention here, coffee. Couldn't function without it. So Duncan, yeah, man, let's get right into the show. Let's talk about your proposal. The last time we had you on the show, you were telling the audience about your plans to craft this proposal together, which you have done so, and now it is live for voting on Terra Station. So before we begin, kind of tell the audience about yourself, the background. Who is Duncan? What's your background? What brought you to cryptocurrency? And then we'll transition into your proposal. Take it away, Duncan.
Yes, so hello everyone. My name is Duncan Day. I am just a guy. I got into cryptocurrencies a couple years ago, so probably around I would say November 2020. I first heard about crypto back in 2017, actually, in the winter of 2017. I got into crypto mostly because I was working at a grocery store at the time, back in 2020, and then I put some money into it, pretty much got lucky, have had a really wild ride since then, so anywhere from trading, family and friends, investment management, and then lots of research. This year's been lots of research. Got into Terra last year, and yeah, I mean, I could go fully into detail about that, but I want to save some time for the juice today.
Gotcha. Nothing wrong with that, my man. So yeah, for the audience members, right, who are new to the space, if you're just coming in, we've got Duncan, who's going to be live with us today talking about his proposal, which is going to be attempting to do a repeg of USTC. So Duncan, kind of tell the audience here about why you've decided to do this proposal, why it's important, right, for those who aren't aware of why we're trying to repeg UST. Kind of talk to us about why it is you're trying to attempt this and why it would be important for the future success of Luna Classic.
Right. So I initially have been really involved with Terra post-crash for a couple reasons. A friend of mine had, asked me to help him buy Luna because they had all crashed, and I was like, just know what you're gonna buy. We had lots of conversations about this beforehand. And then I had a client back in July who lost something like 32 grand in the crash, but they didn't I guess they did not liquidate. And my whole thing about just how I've seen the crash is that, people had their money 1-to-1 in here, and if they didn't, sell, then they're just holding on to money that is no longer a one-to-one, kind of waiting for something to happen. And so that's where I'm approaching all of this from. But long term, it's just, there's a lot of reasons why we would want to repeg. So not only just, as we say, make them whole again, but really the network is extremely important to have something stable to use. Even Ethereum, they use USDC or Tether, or there are 30 different stable coins on there in US dollars. We want to be able, as people using the network, to have some form of stable currency to use. It's just like, I don't want to go to my friendly consumer business and have my money value change by 98% over the course of the time I'm there shopping, so to speak.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, and for everybody in the room that doesn't know exactly what USTC is, prior to the crash, it was UST, right? When it was referably Luna. And then after the crash, it changed to USTC. And so the reason that we're here today is Duncan has made a proposal to see about attempting to repeg that to $1 or close to $1, or even a lower amount. So Duncan, I'm going to go ahead and let you kind of get into the crux of your proposal and explain to the audience, because you kind of touched about it there a little bit, about the importance of it, having a stable coin, right? That's what Luna had prior to the meltdown. And so I'm going to let you talk about your proposal in detail. Tell us a little bit about your plan of attack, what you think would be a good way to achieve a repeg attempt. And then later on in the show, we'll have a portion where we can bring up audience members to ask you questions about your proposal. So tell us a little bit about your Ziggy repeg proposal that's trying to repeg.
Yeah, so the Ziggy proposal is, a series of discussions that have been going on for the last month and a half or so. Originally, the idea was, it was basically, we've had a couple different ideas a lot of different ideas of how can we bring this back to $1, because it's a more or less like a $9.5 billion hole we're trying to plug with $1 billion worth on the network to do that. And the reality is we cannot do it with the money that we have on the network. So we have to see where is the money coming from to do so. Now, the main use cases that I see on network are arbitrage and NFT markets. I would say that arbitrage, especially with bots, is the primary use case. So basically, there's a bot that would be buying and selling on both Luna Classic and on Binance, for example. There's lots of bots running all over the place in blockchain. Now, when they're buying and selling, they're profiting by making these really small trades, small percentiles. You would call it scalping. That's what we call it. Anyways, so in lieu of just having $10 billion come on the network right away, you would buy some and then take like 5% profits. So, you buy at 1 cent, you sell at 2 cents, and now you're back down somewhere in between there, and you're just doing this over and over again. So now we want to kind of see how can we keep doing it all the way up to $1. And the core of Ziggy was this really kind of, in my opinion, was very dubious mechanism where we are taking the exchange rate of Luna So in the system, we would say it's USDR or the Terra SDR. And then we modify it by like a few fractions, maybe just like a few basis points to do so. Now, this is not something that I exactly really liked. But I wanted to kind of openly research the idea and see if I could come up with something, because it's really just a difficult problem in my opinion. So that was the first one, was modify the exchange rate of Luna. I didn't like it. Most people know I didn't like it. This is back in December. So I went through an iteration where the second one, I had a phone call that was worn out lately. I had a phone call with someone who suggested take it step by, like a penny by penny basis, go from 2 cents to 3 cents to 4 cents, all the way up to $1. And I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. So that really drove the future iterations of the proposal. When I first heard it, I was thinking of like, you could think of it like a staircase. The ziggurat came to mind, which is like a stepped pyramid, where if we think, okay, $1 is the top of the pyramid, then the steps going up every penny, those are just extra steps all the way to the top. An iterative approach. So in this one, I said, okay, we're going to take it like a step-by-step approach, and we're going to, but the thing is how do we take what's already there and do it a step-by-step? So we had this algorithm in Terra where you'd swap like 1 Luna for 1 Terra. So in this case, like $1 of Luna is $1 of Terra, US dollar. And then the reverse is also true. So there's some kind of convertibility between those two currencies. And in this one, I was explaining the second iteration. I said, okay, well, if people are going to be doing cross-market arbitrage all the time, and it's happening 24/7, why don't we just incentivize that further? So it takes whatever's going on right now, and it just increases the incentive to do so. Now, the problem with this we'll address later on, but I used the second discussion piece to kind of explain this and try and come up with designs that would do so. So in the third one, trying to even remember the name, was the second. So in the second one, I brought up this concept called the arbitrage modifier, which would be like increasing or decreasing this already existing arbitrage by just a few basis points. Now, the third one was called, I think it was the exchange rate modifier, or the ERM. And this was kind of a more fleshed out idea, which would take the concepts behind derivatives trading. So like all those complex option stuff, maybe you'd see it on Robinhood, like when you buy or sell options, or like the theta and all that. The Greeks is what we call them. And it would take that idea and apply it to UST. So essentially it just treats UST as an option at these levels. Then we would just put it into code. So there's the arbitrage happening, now we want to make the arbitrage just slightly more or slightly less than it already is, and then use a sort of guideline, the Greeks, to make sure it doesn't fly out of control. Now, this brought up like this very important discussion of like, is this market manipulation? Which I was trying to address on the fourth discussion, which was the pendulum, which kind of just said, okay, we want this to go back and forth, right? This is very much how the old mechanism worked. It's just with, it's slightly changed in this new one. And it's very early, so I'm sorry if I missed some bits of the discussion. So on this one, I kind of likened it to a grandfather clock. And in those clocks, they have what's called an anchor escapement mechanism, where there's certain time intervals where the time hands are moving. Now, this one was actually more focused on, is this market manipulation, as a discussion as brought up by the Nova validator, which is not mine. I do the Onyx one, which I thought was a great point. And I thought, well, most of the idea of like, is this market manipulation, brings up the question of like, is monetary policy market manipulation through a strict definition? You know, if the FOMC, so FOMC, they're doing the Fed funding rates meeting, and which decides like the prime rate and all this other stuff. So if I decide that, and if I decide inflation, you know, if we engage in monetary policy, taxes, inflation, all that stuff, is that quote unquote manipulating the market versus like algorithmically determining these? Because inflation, in some regards, on Cosmos blockchains are determined by the amount of stake bonded to the network, and they issue new supply based on that. They have a target rate of like 2/3 of the network is bonded. Now, the most important bit here was that I had this whole design, but and I'm still trying to work on it basically in real time, as you know, this proposal is live. The idea of, well, arbitrage comes about as a form of market inefficiencies, and where, you know, the proposal as is, well, okay, if we make this inefficiency come about by basically by forcing it to be there, then that's a problem. Just last night I've been reading like a bunch of comments and other stuff, and I was thinking, well, maybe we could have validators incentivize this by withholding commission from themselves. So like if you're a 5% commission, then you would withhold 3% and basically say, we'll pay for people to use the chain as part of this cross-market arbitrage process. I'm sorry if it's super dense, but overall, this is where the discussion is. And what the proposal is really saying is that, do you want to work on this as a community, like to go and repeg UST, or is it really not worth my time? You know, is this, because this kind of, you know, I've put a lot of research into this, and I could develop something, but this takes a lot of time on my end, more than I've already given. And I just want to know if it's worth it to do so, to like pursue the algorithmic component that was once there. Because, you know, it's kind of a big dubious thing that happened last year. I mean, I think it's worth keeping, but if we didn't really want stable coins on Luna Classic, then I could take my research somewhere else and do it. Overall, what you're voting for on this proposal is yes, I want to see this particular outline, this plan, because not only would this be developed, I would say, all right, since we have to basically talk to anybody who's using the assets, the Terra assets, because the way I see it is kind of like it was injected into the entire crypto market, and now if we're changing the prices of that, we have to let everyone else know, hey, we're going to do this, are you okay with it? So like getting consensus is what we call it. And really it's just like, it's almost like a sentiment proposal. It's just a text. So if yes or no passes, nothing changes on the network. The only thing that really changes is like how I personally am going to approach this. So a no is basically like, okay, I see that people are not very interested in this action plan, which they can use, right? It's almost like an open source plan. People could vote this in and literally strip it apart and then take what they think is good and then move on. If it's yes, then I'll be willing to work on the network more, particularly with UST. But if it's no, then I'm just going to go do something else, pretty much. But yeah, I hope that kind of explains it. It's been a really wild past couple days for me.
No, absolutely. And that's why we have these programs. We have these discussions here on LUNCLIVE is because, we're a community-based blockchain. We are a governance voting system, right? So any proposal that comes out, we always like to showcase what it is that somebody's, talking about or trying to implement. But yeah, you're right. It's a text-only prop. It doesn't go into effect immediately. And you kind of touched on that too, Duncan. You said basically a vote for yes means we continue the discussions, and that can be broken down. It can be dissected. I'm sure you probably would try to get up with the L1 task force and, put your minds together and think of a good plan of attack because, just in the past couple of days, I've had some people DM me and talked about, some pros and cons, right, of this proposal. And, when it comes to arbitrage trading, that's always a good thing that brings in, buyers and investors. People like to do those sort of things. But then on the flip side, too, you've kind of got the other side of the audience that says, look, this whole situation is the whole reason that Luna, right, back last year crashed in the first place was because of the Repeg event, right? So that's why we're having this discussion today is just bring it to the forefront, allow audience members to kind of follow along, read of what it is you're trying to accomplish. But I'll tell you, first and foremost, Duncan, I'm very appreciative of you taking the time, to come on to the live today to talk to us about your proposal. And I've read your proposals. They're really in depth. There's a lot of good information there. It sometimes gets so technical that it's hard to dissect. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show today to kind of break it down, for people that may have difficulty following along. But it definitely is something we need to discuss because it's a topic we've been talking about now going on for 8 months. We need to come up with some solution involving USTC, and the decision is, hey, look, do we attempt a repeg event, a soft peg, like you kind of stated earlier, about going up in intervals, or do we just leave it alone and not attempt it? But hey, that's why we have voting. That's why we have props, and people go out there and make their voices heard. And folks, if you haven't done so, like I said, the proposal is live right now for your viewing pleasure on Terra Station. Go take a look at it, read the proposal. This, of course, is recorded as well. So, if you've got somebody that said they wanted to be here, but they had to go to work, they had to do things in the real world, it is recorded for you all, so you can come back and listen to it in its entirety, and you can share it as well. It'll be available on the LUNCLIVE.org Twitter page and my Twitter page also. So, yeah, moving forward too, Duncan, I wanted to ask you, because, When you get into these conversations about stable coin, the term stable, right? We always know that our lovely friends over at the United States government, they're really looking at this situation pretty hard, right? This stable coin conversation. And we've kind of been hearing rumbles, about them creating a Stablecoin Transparency Act bill, which basically states that any project that, quote, has a stablecoin is going to have to show proof of reserves. You're going to have to do monthly reports showing that you've got the money to back it, right? 1-to-1. And so that's a big question that people have on their mind right now is, are we going to be able to call it a stable coin? Are we going to have to call it, a different term so that we're not falling under those guidelines to maybe get us in some hot water down the road? All good questions. So I want to ask you personally, Duncan, what would you recommend? Say we do this proposal. It goes through the voting and it passes. People are in favor for doing, a peg. Can you kind of talk to us about, would you call it something else? Would you still call it a stable coin, or have you thought about, that far down the road, or are you just solely focused at this point in time on just attempting a peg of some sort and kind of get to that when we cross it?
Great question. Truth be told, my point of view has always been like, we'll get to that bridge when we cross it. I'm really focused on just the mechanics of it and can it be done again. We've had conversations of calling it an algorithmic fungible token, or an AFT before, and this is so the interesting part of stable coins is that right now we've got a bunch that are either 1-to-1 backed, or they're like over collateralized at 1.6-to-1, and we've got like one on the market that's really under collateralized, so it's more or less like 0.6-to-1. And then Terra, the way I see Terra was that it was 0-to-1, so it's almost like a full-on unsecured credit issuance of money, which I find fascinating. But like, think about having a credit card, and then instead of having the Fed decide this is like the prime rate or the prime APR, whatever it is, determine your 24.99% interest rate. Like, you can have this sort of algorithmically determined, whether by direct scoring or social scoring or however you want to do it. The point is that it's money that isn't backed by anything other than good faith and credit, which is really what makes up what Terra's about, is that it's pegged to not, the dollar's not, so the dollar is pegged to, quote unquote, the dollar, but it's really pegged to the IMF's SDR, so the special drawing rights. And I could talk about that if you're interested. But in terms of the regulations and all that stuff, it has to be fully reserved and all that jazz. And I think that for me, when talking about the actual mechanisms of it, that going full reserve kind of, it doesn't kill innovation. It just, you kind of cap out the innovative aspects of it. But yeah, I've pretty much just been so focused on how this works in the first place, where sort of the hitches are on making it work, and then seeing if I can work with those so that it's not, basically so that the idea is not gone to waste. Because I think it would be really just like heartbreaking to see this like core idea gone to waste. I think it's very valuable to keep.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, that was the main reason that Luna did so well in the past. that was kind of its calling card, right? Having that stable coin that was decentralized, that kind of took it to the moon, right? So people really enjoyed that. They really got hyped about it. And then unfortunately, due to uncertain events, we had that Repeg event and everything kind of crashed. But the beautiful thing about it, and I think that's why we still are here, is that people are very, very impressed with everything that's just been done within the last 8 months. And we talk about it also on LUNCLIVE as much as we can. And a lot of people are starting to understand that there probably is something stewing here. Because when it comes to cryptocurrency, and I'm sure, Duncan, you can agree, is that when you have large flash crashes, and I'm not just talking about, a 2% dip or a 5% dip. I mean, that's a normal day in cryptocurrency. I'm talking about 99% down from all-time high, right? 60 billion some odd dollars lost in a moment of days. But yet here we are standing just above $1 billion market cap still. Now, this is prior to FTX going down, Sam Bankman-Fried being arrested, all that. Really, Luna was the first really large black swan event that the market had seen at the time, and it was the worst, prior to SBF and his thing, right? So I know for a fact a lot of people have their eyes still on Luna Classic. It's still listed on major exchanges. And now we also have a Binance burn coming up next month, and they're assisting us. So that's a good sign. It seems like to me that a lot of players still have faith in the project, and they still believe that there can be some type of recovery effort. I had a conversation with a colleague in real life who I was trying to inform him about, what is we're doing over here, and we're trying to rebuild and get things back online and do a USTC Repeg event. And he went to the chart and he said, well, Diamond, it's 99% down. It looks like it's dead, right? And I said, look, you can't look at the chart. You have to be in these spaces. You have to come on our shows, be in these Twitter spaces and actually listen to the people who are working diligently, right, for months and months and months to get things back up and operational. Which, folks, again, if you're a first-time listener, we want you to come back. We want you to come back and listen to all the events that have been going on for months and the people who are working hard to try and get things back online, operational for the Luna Classic community. It's bullish, man. It's never been done before. This would be the greatest crypto comeback story in crypto history, and we want you to be a part of it with us. Now, Duncan, it's very clear to me, like I said, you put a lot of work into this. And again, we're grateful you came on the show. You're always welcome back, and I'm with you. I'd hate to see, all your hard work go to waste. And tell us about kind of your plan. Okay, so you get the proposal passed. People voted. It's a yay. Okay, kind of tell us about your next steps. Would you reach out to other developers? Would you reach out to people who you've had contact with to assist you in this Repeg event? Because you stated earlier it's just the text only. It doesn't go into effect immediately. So do you have people on your radar that you would reach out to assist you in this initiative? Do you have anybody that you're looking at?
Yeah, so this is inherently what we would call a layer one, technical change, more or less, or, a code addition. I think you can do it on layer two, but inherently it is a layer one thing. So I'd have to talk to the layer one team and say, hey, is this even okay to do? Like, is this code addition, like, can we integrate it or no? Does it just like suck, And if it does, even if it was a yes and they're like, yeah, this kind of sucks, then I just have to just scrap it, So there's the whole thing about the proposal as it stands is, if I don't get consensus from the developers, then the proposal is null and void, even if it passes. Now, this goes on further to say in steps 2 and 3, or steps 2, that we have to get cross-market consensus. So, like, a lot of people ask me, like, did you clear this with Binance? Which, to me, doesn't even strike me as consensus. It strikes me as permission. And I don't necessarily have CZ's personal phone number. I can't be like, hey, buddy, like, is this okay? If not, can you let me know? I know you're really busy. So that's why I like consensus over permission. because it's not just Binance too. There's a bunch of exchanges that have serviced Terra assets, and DEX markets. So I was trying to account for as many instances of where that occurred. And then if I didn't get consent, so if we make a change like this, like an algorithmic, sorry, then we want to make sure that if they're pulling prices from our Oracle, right? So like if we're changing it, like if we're submitting prices every 30 seconds, and then other DEX markets, other exchanges are pulling the same prices, but we're modifying it in real time, like we are more or less affecting their markets as well. So, I'm thinking of a kind of real world example of, maybe we have the same tender in a different country, but they have different regional, jurisdictions, whether on monetary policy or else. So if I used US dollar in America, but I also used it in Europe, for example, I'm trying to think of some better examples, then affecting the US dollar in America would also affect how it's being used in Europe. That's like the core idea of the cross-market consensus part. But first, I would just get developers on and the L1 team, and then ultimately on step 3 is to run it, to test, and then implement it. You don't want to like go live with this thing, because one community member said it's like attaching a jet engine to a very fragile chassis, and it's very true. We don't want to send our Toyota Corolla to the moon. We want to send a spaceship to the moon, a rocket. But the rocket has to have a very well-developed, body. We cannot just strap jet engines to the Toyota Corolla, point it up, and say, "All right, Bucko, here you go. You said you wanted to go to the moon. Here you go. Here's your to the moon." So yeah, ultimately we just test it, and on either what we'd call a test net, you could do it on a side chain, but just see if this works, for one. And so there is some risk here, and why I didn't request any money from it, because it's like what's coming out of it is my time, and I'm not going to charge the community like, here, give me like $50,000 to try it out. They're not venture capitalists hoping for money. Like, this is we want to protect the core of their investment. So,
and that's good. And when you were talking about the Corolla putting rockets on it and sending it to the moon, I was thinking of like Buzz Lightyear, right, where he straps that big candle on his back and tries to fly. So I'm right there with you. It's definitely something that needs to be looked at very carefully, and nothing needs to be rushed. So I like how you gave that answer, saying that you want to do some testing, that you would get up with the L1 task force, maybe reach out to other, entities to get their opinion on it. I think that's smart, and I think a lot of people are wanting to see it happen, but they're just so nervous. I couldn't tell you if I had $1, for every time somebody messaged me and said, "Look, we want to repeg USTC, but what happens if another crash happens?" Right? And that's what everybody has on their mind. I think that's no big secret. And just from my personal opinion, I think that would be it, honestly. Because, you can't, one crash, okay, you can say, look, that was a black swan event, totally unforeseen, beyond control, right? You have this wonderful, beautiful recovery effort. Things are fixed. Things are brought back to what it was prior. But then if we don't do it correct, and things start crashing again, that's it, right? People will be like, well, we can't protect it. It's not SAFU, and I'm going to move on. And we don't want that to happen because we have such a wonderful big community. There's a lot of people who are bullish on the Classic, and they want to see it be successful, including myself, right? So I do like how you're trying to take this, the careful approach, Duncan. I think that's very, very important, getting consensus from other people other than yourself. I mean, that's a really, really good initiative, and that's something that I'll always support 100%. Because when you're trying to develop something that affects, an entire blockchain, millions of wallets, tons and tons of people's investments, it needs to be a serious conversation. You just rush it and implement it without double checking, triple checking, testing it again, right? Having multiple eyes look at it. You may not see a crucial mistake. You may, make a very costly mistake that's it. That's all she wrote, right? And we definitely don't want that to happen. And that's why we have spaces like this. We encourage people to come and listen. We'll always have people who put out proposals that, do big things for the blockchain and for the community. So again, if you all are a first-time listener, we'd love to have you come back. We do these spaces, Monday through Thursday as much as possible, and including major spaces. We've got one coming up in February with some large influencers from the LUNC Classic community, and we encourage everybody to come and attend that as well. So, Duncan, if you're okay with it, I want to try to open up, some time here for the audience. I know that your time is precious, and I don't want to waste any of that time. So, folks, we're going to go ahead and take some time to allow members of the audience to come up and ask questions of Duncan about his proposal. We just ask that you be respectful of everybody's time, be respectful of Duncan, and try to keep your questions to a minimum. What we'll do, we'll bring you up one by one. We'll have you ask your question, and then we'll let Duncan respond, and then we'll move on to the next. Because, like I said, we want to be respectful of his time and other people in the audience. So if you have any questions for Duncan, now's the time to request the mic. I can bring you up one at a time, and we can talk about proposal 11324. So one thing that I was talking to, members of my team, right, Duncan, is what can we do, right, as a community to show the outside world that we're bullish? Like, what is it that we can do, right? How can we silence the naysayers, the non-believers, people who just say, well, LUNC Classic is dead, it's a zombie chain, it's not coming back, and I think that this is a step in the right direction. I think that just continuing to deliver, that was the main topic of our team meeting last night with the LUNCLIVE crew. Just proving to people every single day that you're here to stay. And I just want to publicly give a big shout out to Ed Kim, LUNC Burn Army, Zardar, yourself, Duncan, anybody that's working. Because here's the deal, folks, right? I got my little one here. She's in the office with me, right? So I'm a father. I understand that life can get tough sometimes and gets very, very hectic. But you know what? When you believe in something, you're all in. And I know it gets stressful. It gets very stressful. Social media sometimes can be a horrible place. It can get you down in the dumps, and it wanes on you. So I just wanted to give that shout out to the boys there. Anybody working hard, our validators, community members who put out like anything, graphics, videos, coming into these spaces, showing support. You are very key to this movement. Okay, without your help, it's not going to be possible. And so I want you guys to remember that you are greatly appreciated. There are people who support you 110%. Keep going, right? It's going to get tough. It's going to get nasty, but we got your guys back. I got Tobias here, Duncan, from the L1 Task Force. I'm going to go ahead and bring him up because he said he wanted to discuss this with you. I think this is a wonderful idea to bring a member of the L1 Task Force. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing to the panel Tobias Zardar of L1 Task Force. He's on a team that has been assigned to help recover LUNC Classic. So Tobias, welcome to LUNCLIVE. We're glad to have you on the show here with Duncan. How are you doing today, sir?
Thanks, buddy. It's nice to be here. I'm doing good. It's just another day at the office having, opinionated debates about how to craft the software to meet the community's requirements. But that's all part of building a software team. I've done this a few times before. and by and large, I think we're doing good. Obviously, there are other things going around outside the team that we largely try to ignore. But there are certain things that we pick up on, like Duncan's idea around the Ziggy Repeg proposal. Now, to try to give everybody some context here, I've had the pleasure of working with Duncan in the past. I have a lot of respect for Duncan, not necessarily because he's a financial specialist or some sort of hardcore developer type, but because he is a person who has the courage to dream and dream big, and he's not afraid of failing. And that is really the main way for us to get out of Goblin Town and into something better. So when I read through the Ziggy proposal, there was clearly a few areas where I'm a bit concerned. I think Duncan addressed some of those concerns in his very professional presentation here today. I would rather have, a meeting with Duncan and the developer team around this rather than a Twitter space talk about it, because I think it's going to get lengthy and there's a lot of, angles to it. So all in all, I think we should definitely have a talk about this, because by and large, what people have to understand is that there's a few constraints around how a Cosmos chain works. Now, most people, they view our chain from what we call the logical architecture. So when Duncan sits in his labs and dream up these great business ideas, he sees the world from the outside. And the other people on the L1 team, we look at the physical architecture. So we look at it from the inside. So we know there are certain problems for Duncan to succeed with regards to the layer 1 is a very slow database, and the adversaries trying to break our new system are running in some layer 2 real-time, high-speed internet setup. We only get price points on certain blocks and so on. And it's our belief that if we can accept that we need to introduce some guards that prevent against what we call systematic risk, which is inherently what Duncan was describing with the US dollar versus euro thing and how financial markets can affect each other. I think we can get to a point where maybe we can get a constraint on the swap system, so we can never mint more than a certain amount of money. Maybe we can add in some more taxes to make it, impossible to try to abuse the system without losing money. Maybe we can slow down the block speeds. I know this is going to piss off the validators, but if we slow down the block speeds to like 15 or 20 seconds, we could provide a price point on each block, which would allow the on-chain system to actually compete, right? Because right now, the on-chain system only gets an update every 30 seconds, whereas the people who are trying to break the system, they get real-time price data within seconds, right? So there's clearly, it's like trying to having a race in like an old Toyota against somebody in a Formula 1 car. Eventually, you're going to lose. And you're only going to lose for a small millisecond, which is what Diamond Hands described, which is what causes these flash crashes, right? Now, as luck would have it, I have a cousin who's actually a professor in economics. He's been studying market volatility for 20 plus years, ever since he got liquidated the first time in his young days. And he's come up with a model for predicting volatility in real systems based on real fiat movement. And my idea is that if we can somehow start studying these things and combine them with the ideas from people like Duncan and Fafi and Alex and so on, maybe we can repurpose the layer 1 system and introduce sufficient guards to create something that will actually work. But the challenge here is that we don't get a do-over. If we fuck this up, the chain is officially dead, right? And this is why I've been very reluctant about trying to push things, even trying to push in something like the constrained pool idea that I have, which is actually certified by Vegas's burn tax proposal, because that states that we should only have 10 billion supply once the burn tax is done burning and so on. But getting these things in can be difficult and time consuming, and we have to be very diligent around testing it and so on. And that is the process we have to work through. And I would encourage, and this is why I think in many ways Duncan is a very good spearhead for an initiative like this. I would encourage all of the, let's call them mathematical wizards in our community, to get together and actually try to write a shared white paper on how to fix this system, because I've been pushing for this since day one in Terra Rebels. When we had the quant team, whenever a new quant team lead came in, the first thing I asked the person to do was to generate consensus in the community around a Repeg white paper that every single quant would get up on stage and support together. I think that is the first step, and I think Duncan's personality, his energy for wanting to build out of the situation, and all of these things maybe makes him a good conduit for getting this consensus. And then I think if we can get that consensus in place, then implementing the code is simply just a matter of, bringing in any developer who can, provide a pull request that provides a component piece for this real life spaceship that we want to build that isn't this Toyota chassis. And then eventually we will get to a point where we will launch the killer feature that is our blockchain, right? Because you can't build general purpose Cosmos chains. Cosmos architecture was not meant for that. What Terra Classic was meant to do was run an MMA and that MMA can be built into a fully fledged DEX if we put enough effort into it. And that should be the overarching goal for this community and this blockchain, because if we try to become a Swiss Army knife of everything, then it's going to be a problem, right? But if we carry a base layer feature of, an on-chain DEX system with high liquidity, and we then support like metaverses and games and NFTs, that's a spot where we can start growing up the value in a way so that when we get to the top of this cigarette, the underlying real-world liquidity supporting the market will not cause another DPEG, right? So these steps up the cigarette have to be carefully managed. As I tend to tell people, I would rather have my bag grow more than inflation every year than 100% per month, right? Because that's not inducive of the type of stability that we want. But if we can build up the cigarette and we can build up the liquidity in a real fashion, then I believe we can eventually make a system like this work, and that should be our overall goal, because if that's not our goal, then what we're doing is kind of pointless to begin with.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's very clear. I mean, even in our room today, we've got 368 people in the LUNCLIVE space. So that genuinely tells me that people are very, very interested in what we're doing, right? What we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to recover. And so that's a very good sign. Now, if you had say 15 people in here, that might be a bad sign. But it's always good to see such a large turnout. I think everybody is rooting for Luna Classic. I think that's very, very clear. Here we are now 8 months into this recovery effort. And, look, it's very clear to me. I mean, we're sitting at just above $1 billion market cap. We've been in a bear market now for about a year and 2 months. Hopefully it's going to be ending soon. We don't know yet, but time's going to tell. But I agree with you there, Zardar. I think it's important that we do everything that we can, humanly possible, to work together. And I know that over the past week, things have been getting kind of heated, right? Which that's good. It's called passion, right? You have to be passionate about things that you like. If you're not passionate about it, then it's going to be hard to get that point across to people. It really is. So I'm very, very thankful myself to have people in this community that, you're going to kind of butt heads every now and then. And look, families fight. I get that. People are going to fight. They're going to go at one another. But at the end of the day, I'm thankful that we have these conversations. There's a lot of big accounts who show support for Luna Classic. And you're going to have your bad days. You're going to have your good days. But, all that this is doing, folks, is making me more bullish on Luna Classic. And Zardar just kind of told you there, just keep it bread and butter. don't make it so complex to where we turn into a Swiss Army knife. Just keep it bare bones stuff of what we offer. And if we do things like with gaming and metaverses, that's just icing on the cake. But I think that the goal right now in the short term is just trying to get everybody in the same war room, get everybody together and say, okay, look, here's what we're proposing. What do you guys think about this? Get consensus from all angles, all parties, right? And then just give it to the community. Do your best on it. That's all that you can do, right? Because at the end of the day, the people are going to give you their answer. But I'm pretty confident too that if you ask the people like, "Hey, do you want to go to the moon together?" It'll be an overwhelming yes. I'm pretty for sure that the sexes will be on board with that. All the exchanges, all the holders, they'd be like, "Yeah, that's a yes for me." So I'm very, very thankful that we have people that continue to show up every day and show support. I'm thankful for all the validators that we have, all of the influencers that do content for us. Make sure you guys watch their videos, follow them on social media, because that's how you keep this thing going. If you see the hashtag LUNC, the $LUNC, retweet it, right? Be in these spaces. Come join us on LUNCLIVE. Follow all of us here. We're going to be here for a while, man. This is going to be a very exciting thing. And I think the future is going to be super, super bright for this blockchain. I really, really do. Duncan, did you have anything else that you wanted to kind of cover? I said we have some people that have raised their hands. I want to try to get to just a couple questions to engage with the audience, bring them up for a bit, because I know this has been on everybody's mind for now about a week straight. And so if you got the time, I wanted to bring some people up to ask some questions about the proposal. And if you've got time, we'll go ahead and do that now.
Yeah. So just one thing I want to add to what Zeradar said. So thank you, Zeradar, for the support and kind words. But I think what a really important thing to mention here is the agreed upon quant white paper that he's talked about for a long time. Because I've sifted through hundreds of ideas. People will send me like paragraphs saying, I have this idea. They'll call me for like 30 minutes. I have this idea. And I'm filtering through all of them and seeing like, what are the common ideas that people find useful? But ultimately we have to come to a point where it's like back when Luna Classic was first crashed, the first thing that happened was like, okay, how do we all get on the same page about one thing? And that was like the tax and the burn. And now we have to do the same thing for USTC, because ultimately these two things are not independent. Well, they are independent of each other to some degree, but they are interdependent on one another. So the thing about USTC is that there's lots of different ways of approaching this, and not one of them is going to be completely right. And even this proposal, it's like, is this the completely right way? Maybe, maybe not. But there's a ton of people with great ideas contributing to the same goal, the same way that people are contributing different methods of burning LUNC, they're contributing different methods of repegging USTC. And I think all of them are valuable. It's just filtering them and then coming up with one cohesive plan around it and saying, look, we're all on the same page about how to do this. We don't know if it's going to be perfect, not that anything is, but let's just get on the same page about something, because we're all trying to do the same thing in the end of the day. Like, whether it's making our investment or just repegging it, right? That's how I feel about it. I think there's been a lot of strife needlessly made about just disagreeing on such a core ideology that we share.
No, I agree. And I think that's what people need to understand is, when it comes down to certain situations and certain beliefs and opinions, you may not agree on everything, and it's okay to disagree. That's not an issue at all. I just think that moving forward now, especially at such a crucial time, that it's very important for everybody to work together. It's very important to, set your differences aside and look at the larger goal. And at the end of the day, folks, the goal is just to recover the blockchain. That's it. I mean, that's the number one goal that everybody should have. Not taking away from the validators or holders or people that are actually making the proposals. We shouldn't be focusing solely on just single goals. We should be focusing on the goal, and that's recovering. That's getting back where we belong. That's getting back in the top 10, being all over the major news networks, and basically just shocking the world. And I think that a lot of people would be very, very interested in that, and they want to be a part of it. And that's why they continue, to hold LUNC Classic. That's why they've been here for months, right? And so I'm very confident in our abilities. I'm very confident in the people that we have working to revitalize everything. Because a lot of people, they get discouraged. Of course, you've got the Federal Reserve meeting coming up here in just a little while. I think 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our buddy Jerome Powell is going to get up there and get on that microphone and say, "Can you hear me?" So watch out for that, folks. If you're a listener here, keep your eyes on Bitcoin. Prepare for volatility. It's going to get fun, right? Every time there's an FOMC meeting with Jerome, things get interesting. So buckle up for that. I'm going to go ahead and bring up some people here who's requested to speak. We got Matt Market, who is one of our partners at LUNCLIVE. Matt, I'll go ahead and bring you up, and then I'll also bring up Abdul after him. So Matt, we'll start with you, man. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you. It's always good to see other people of LUNCLIVE come in and show support. I know you got your regular day job going on, but it's always good to see people come in and show support for people that are trying to bring things back to normal. So welcome, Matt. Good to have you here, man, as always. If you have a question, lay it on Duncan. And if not, I'll go ahead and get to Abdul, and we'll keep it going.
Absolutely, man. Hey, Duncan, man, thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it. I think you're seeing overwhelming support for the Repeg initiative, and I want to commend you for that. I had a few questions for you. One being with the centralized exchanges, do you think that'll be a big hurdle to come across? And do you kind of have a plan started to maybe bring that towards them to implement the proposal that we're to Repeg USTC?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this quite a lot. A lot of people message me and they say, "Hey, did you talk to Binance about this?" And ultimately, it is more about than just Binance, but Binance has a large amount of the supply. So what I wrote in the proposal is that they should run a node. So Binance is one of the few that does run a node. KuCoin's the other one. Coinbase and Kraken, they used to do it. But really, I wanted them, well, but I thought it would be a good idea for them to run a node so that if we introduced any sort of changes in the price, that they could essentially corroborate their price feed internally with the chains. So just some accountability, more or less. The actual plan around this is pretty much, first off, if it's not even going to be developed, then I just don't even think it's worth talking to, like bothering the exchanges about it. But I will, if it is saying like, we can develop it, let's see how we do it, then we'll go talk to the exchanges and say, hey, if we're going to make this big change that has, like, for example, turning the swaps back on, then how do we work with you on that? This is kind of just a back and forth process. There's iteration on that front as well. So
to develop all these mechanisms that you referred to in Agora, in your professional outlined Agora medium, are you planning to put any community spin props forward to help you develop that? Because doing all this stuff clearly takes time, and time is money, and your time is valuable. I was wondering if you had any community spin props to help you develop and to test all of these mechanisms that you'll have to put into place to for the repeg?
No, I didn't have any plans for that. I wrote in the proposal, I said, if any team wants to request like money from the community, because we have really limited funds in the community pool right now. At the current valuations, I haven't checked prices this morning. It was like if we paid 175 grand for like quarter one to all of the participants, you've got one more quarter and that's it. You know, we've turned the burner back on to 100%. So it's like, where are we going to get the money? So I'm not even thinking about that. But if people who are like, I want to develop this for the proposal, it doesn't necessarily have to be for Ziggy. This is like why I wrote it the way I did. It's like, you know, if you're part of like a DAO or something and you're like, we want to build a protocol on Luna Classic that will help with the repeg, then they can request the money and show the work that they've done. But me personally, no. Yeah, I'm quite aware of how much money is in there right now.
Yeah, because I mean, it could be an initiative to where maybe Q2 or Q3, being that this is a L1 issue, that maybe we could get the L1 task force involved to work closely with you, if that's what the community wants, to push this narrative to repeg USTC. So that's why I was kind of wondering if you had a spin prop plan, because I know doing all this work is time consuming, and you know, I was just wondering if you kind of had a plan laid out for that. So that was my question, really.
I appreciate it. And I do think that's important to note. I've written it in the proposal that like anybody can make a community spend proposal for like USTC repeg initiatives. Doesn't even have to be Ziggy. And that would be done separately. Yeah, I can work with the L1 team, but it's been very sort of challenging in this last, you know, half year where, you know, people want to see the work done first and then pay. And for me personally, maybe this is just a result of my first job where I had some really close coworkers of mine. One of them told my boss, who I was friends with, and he said, you know, life's like Monopoly. At the end of life, you know, when you die, all of the money goes back in the box. As long as you have water, food, and a roof over your head, and community and health, you know, that's really what matters. So for me, if I can have my ramen and occasional pizza with like some water, then I'll probably be okay. I'm very lucky to be where I'm at right now. But you know, that's really why I can work on it full time.
To look at it from a venture capitalist standpoint, I mean, of course, it'd be up to the community to see if they would want to, you know, invest to pay for the time to develop these mechanisms for that, because it's pretty complicated stuff on what you guys are working on. So I'd love to see what you got moving forward. One last question, man. Do you have any teams that have already reached out to you in interest with working with you to help develop this? And could you kind of walk us through maybe who you were in talks with and all that good stuff?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few different people that have just reached out to me. Just different ones that have been asking about token designs, for example. I know Demon Monkey was actually part of one of those groups. He got rung in or brought in. So that was, I think it was Demon Monkey, Jay from the Bay, Mustafa, and Venus. And then there was another team that was Dr. Locums and Gethin Williams, and then ZK Domains, if you can believe it. And then trying to think, there's probably some that I'm missing here. I've been asked to do like various different stuff, but yeah.
I got you, man. Did you mention Nova? in the beginning? I kind of tuned in a little bit late.
Yeah, so Nova Validator, which is I think it's Bilbo Baggins. They were the ones who brought up the whole like, is this market manipulation? This is an important discussion to have. And speaking of teams, I also talked with Chrissy and Brian from LUNC Development Fund. They have contacted me to show support even for the what was supposed to be the layer 2 Nova that I was working on, but I don't know if that'll work on Classic. I've talked to a lot of different teams. It's I feel like I'm missing some right now, but while aside from doing the USD Repeg work, like, I've written probably like 3 white papers since, and none of them are published right now. So,
Well, cool, man. Thank you for answering my questions, and I wish you the best, man. I do think, possibly Repeg and USTC to LUNC could be very, very bullish for Luna Classic. So I commend you for your work, man, and I look forward to seeing what you're putting out here in the future.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt, for the wonderful question. It's always good to get questions from community members, people who show support for Luna Classic every day. And of course, folks, we probably have a couple more minutes for a couple more questions for Duncan before we sign off. If you have any question whatsoever, you can either DM me. Some people are a little bit shy. We've got people that are a little bit shy. So if you want to DM me your question, you can do that. Or you can request the mic and ask Duncan any questions that you may have involving his proposal, right? 11324, the Ziggy Repeg of USTC. And again, just for people who are coming in late, this proposal is live right now for voting on Terra Station. So it is there for your viewing pleasure. There's links there in the descriptions to take you to Agora, which kind of outlines, his idea word for word. So if you want to go and take a look at that, you can. Also, if you want to do him the honor of giving him a follow, you can go to Duncan's Twitter page there at RapDday, and you can see, I'm sure he's got information there involving the Ziggy Repeg proposal as well. And yeah, it's us as well. I mean, we'd love to have you guys give us a follow. We want to see you come back, right? Come on back and see us in LUNCLIVE. We're here all the time during the week. We try to bring you good content, show positivity and unity, and that's what we need to continue to do. I think it's going to be very, very important for us now moving forward into 2023 to make that our sole goal, is to come together as a community, put the brightest minds in the same place, and get this baby off the ground. I know I'm ready for it. I know a lot of people are. I just got to be patient and watch these markets. Again, warning, in case you didn't hear earlier, there is a FOMC meeting today, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure that you check your watches during that time, because I have a feeling we're going to see some volatility and some fireworks in the market. So just be ready for that. I got Toussaint. It's always good to see you, my friend. You're always one of the regulars. Glad to have you in the space today. I'm going to go ahead and bring you on up next. Any questions that you have for Duncan involving his proposal, by all means, lay it on him, my man. You're next up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say to Duncan, you, Diamond, Demon, Ed, and everybody in this audience, thanks. I appreciate you. Good morning. That's it.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. We appreciate everybody in here, man, for real. Anybody that came online today, we got 358 people. That's a good space, folks. That's a good LUNCLIVE space. And we're going to make it our personal mission, too, moving forward, into the next coming weeks and months and quarters and so on and so forth. That's what we're going to do for you all, right? As one of your validators, as people who really, truly believe in the recovery effort. We're going to do more of this. We're going to have spaces that push unity, that give you good content, because I think that's what the people want. Serious investors, they just want the facts, right? Not so much the drama, not so much the entertainment, although there are spaces for that. And it's, we call them late night, right? LUNC late night. And that's good. But during the regular scheduled programming, we try to focus solely on just the facts, because we know that your time is precious. We will not waste your time, and we're going to bring you just as it hits us, right? Because it's very important that you stay informed in cryptocurrency, because crypto never sleeps. And so if you're somebody that's not always online, we want to be that lifeline for you. So if you do follow us, if you have your notification bells turned on for us, we appreciate it, because we're here, right? We're here for you. So if you can't be here in the cryptoverse, right, that's where we come in. We're going to be like your buddy, your lifeline, your agent, so that if you're working in the real world, if you're with the kiddos, if you're on vacation or you don't have service, when you get back to it, you can say, okay, what did Diamond say? What did the validators say? What did LUNCLIVE say? What I missed, right? And also every space, if you come in here with us, they're going to be recorded, right? We make sure we make that available to everybody, because we're all scattered across the world. We're in different time zones, different backgrounds. So we always make sure that our spaces are recorded. So if you missed it, you can come back and listen to it on your own time, in your own dime. So we probably got probably enough time for one more question. We got, looks like Crypto Lunatic. Go ahead and bring him up. And I apologize, folks, if I didn't get to everybody, but we got to keep this probably close to that 1 hour mark, because I got some things I got to do in real world today. Stay tuned, because I've not let the cat out of the bag yet, but I'm working on something for you all. And it does involve real world broadcasting, okay, media companies. I'm actually in talks with one right now, have been for the last week, and the conversations are going very, very well. This media company has individuals located across the United States, multiple markets. They have like 20 shows on their media program. They're going to have their own app. It's going to be very, very interesting. And who knows, maybe your guy, Mr. Diamond Hands, may link up with these cats. And what would I talk about on their program? I don't know. Bitcoin? No, Luna Classic, man. You know how we roll. So we got Crypto Lunatic. We'll go ahead and make you our last speaker, my friend. Any comments, questions, or concerns that you got? Or any questions for Duncan? Lay it on him. You're next.
Hi, I just have basically one question. Like, we've gone over the proposal. I'm from the Lunatics community. We haven't voted yet. It was the proposal looks good. I think it can work. The only thing is about exchanges requiring to adopt this. Has there been any talks with exchanges to get a feel if they would, or stuff like that?
Yeah. So from what I understand, we had turning the swaps back on the roadmap back when I guess most of us were working with Terra Rebels. So we had this plan, and I think the people who are on the L1 team, probably Ed, have already talked to them about this plan. Now, all I'm doing on this Ziggy prop is saying I kind of want to add, I want to add a new feature, or improve upon the existing swap mechanism. So that's really what it comes down to. And when it comes to other exchanges such as Binance, I've already asked Ed, hey, can you ask Binance, if this is okay, if we're cool with this? And he said he'd talk to them. So I have to wait to hear back from that.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, it's a text proposal, so nothing's changing right away, but it's just getting community feel, and I think it is a good proposal, and if they can get the exchanges on board, this will be a good thing. So thanks for the prop.
Yeah, of course. And well, thanks for asking. I know a lot of people have been asking about it. It's one of those things where we have to just kind of play some of it by ear. But the intention is there. So
yeah, I believe the concept can work. So if we can push exchanges to adopt it, it will be a good thing for LUNC.
I agree.
Couldn't agree more, gentlemen. I think that's very, very important, is just working together, having open lines of communication, not only between members of the L1 task force, but people that are in the community, your validators, your exchanges. They all work together. And that's what's so beautiful about this movement is that's never really been done before. It hasn't been done before, right? It's never been seen before, where exchanges and the project, people inside the project are working together. And I think it's safe to say that, these exchanges, they believe in us, right? Because if they didn't, you wouldn't see Luna Classic listed on Binance or KuCoin or any of the larger ones. They wouldn't be there. They simply wouldn't. They'd be gone. It would be delisted and it'd be over and done with. So that should tell you right there in itself that I think they're rooting for us. I really do, because let's face it, they see opportunity. It's a large community, like I said, sitting at just above $1 billion market cap. So there is potential there, but we have to focus on like what we said earlier, right? Working together, showing positivity, keeping our disagreements to a minimum, because what that's going to do is that's going to show outside investors and that's going to show outside people that, okay, look, the Classic folks, man, they're starting to rally here. We see some smoke, and eventually there's going to be some fire, and we need to get in on this before they start taking off. That's a goal that we need to start having going further into 2023, because that's going to make the difference between us being winners and losers. And I think that people are tired of losing. I know that for a fact. People are ready to see some action, baby. They're ready to get some things working and get excited, get bullish again. And we're going to. We're going to get there, folks. It's just going to take some time. We tell you that all the time. It's going to take a little bit of time, lots of effort, lots of teamwork, and just, being there and supporting one another. We're always available. Our DMs are always open. Any comments, questions, or concerns that you got, shoot us a message. We try to be on here, like I said, during the week, Monday through Thursday, for about 1 hour, 2 hours sometimes. We also have other meetings that we get to. So if we don't go live, we let you guys know, and we come back stronger the very next day. We're probably going to go ahead and wrap it up for today, guys. Duncan, if you have anything else that you want to talk to these fine community members of Luna Classic, please, by all means, do so. And folks, I'm going to give it to Duncan, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up.
Well, first, thanks for having me on again and talking about it. I'm sorry I'm a little sleep deprived today. So I just want to say that if you do have questions, concerns, comments, all you have to do is, you can send me a message, or I prefer if you at me on Twitter or on Agora. Just get a public discussion about it going. That's really where a lot of the better work has come from, is from people saying, hey, how is this going to work? I'd be happy to answer any questions that are, if you don't understand it from the baseline level, first ask your validators, but you can also ask me too. I'd be happy to try and not try, but I'd be happy to explain it to you. So yeah, just let me know. Thank you guys for the support. Cast your votes as you'd like. And regardless, no feelings hurt. So that's that.
Absolutely. Folks, you heard from the man himself, the author of Prop 11324, the Ziggy Repeg of USTC, Duncan Rap D-Day. So thank you so much for coming on LUNCLIVE. It's always a privilege to have you on the air. This is your second time now. We always enjoy you coming on because you look at things from a technical standpoint, and that's always appreciated because not everybody has, that gift to innovate, and they always like hearing, people in the community that are trying to assist in the greatest crypto recovery that's ever been done. So thank you so much, Duncan, for coming on. We really appreciate it. We'll be sure to have you back on. Just like you said, folks, get out there and vote. The proposal is live on Terra Station. Make your voice heard, because without you as a community member, there is no Luna Classic. Ladies and gentlemen, from all of us here at LUNCLIVE, I'm Mr. Diamond Hands. I love you all. We'll be back tomorrow for the next edition of LUNCLIVE. I want each and every one of you to remember, we're in this together, right? We are strong together, and we're weak when we're separated. So let's come together as a community. Let's get things rocking, and let's go to the moon together. Folks, you stay classic. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.